Lists with two distinctly different views of him. Sonia Purnell has written a book, Just Boris, A Tale of Blonde Ambition, and Andrew Gimson has written Boris, The Rise of Boris Johnson. Sonia, fair to say that you're not a huge fan?
There are many things about Boris Johnson to admire and to marvel at. His incredible campaigning flair, of course. However, I think if you look at other aspects of his personality, his trustworthiness with statistics, for example.
You mean he tells lies?
I think he tells untruths, yes, when it's convenient to him. And he's been caught out quite a few times in his career and professional life.
And?
Personally, I quite like to have a Prime Minister that doesn't get caught out lying very often. So I would have great reservations about that, certainly.
Anything else about his past?
I think if you look at his competence to run a very large organisation, when he first went into City Hall, it was total chaos. We had a rash of resignations, sackings, a criminal prosecution. His chief of staff had to take him out to dinner, aged him into a dark corner of a London restaurant and told him to get a grip and start behaving like a mayor. Things did calm down in City Hall, as we know, but that was largely down to the competence of a very, very good deputy mayor. He was quite often absent. He was busy writing books, writing columns. He didn't really get to grips with some of the problems in London, such as housing and air pollution, and we're paying the price of that now. He also doesn't really like working in a team. He's a loner. He's not someone who likes people around him of the same sort of status as he is. He's great with subordinates. He's not so good with people, anyone that he thinks might be a threat.
Andrew, the other side of the coin.
Well, I think Sonia is absolutely right that Boris hasn't always had a strict regard for truth. But I think this is a sort of ridiculous and naive idea of politics. I think Boris is...
you mean they all tell lies, do you?
They all tell lies. Actually, what Sonia said was that you shouldn't be found out. But sometimes you have to go abroad to lie for the good of your own country, for example. You don't go to Brussels and say... And they say,
but what you shouldn't do is lie to your own people.
You don't go to Brussels and say, and Juncker says to you, what's your negotiating position? You say, well, it's X, Y, and Z. You bloody well don't tell him, for God's sake. And you maybe dissemble what the bottom line in that negotiation is. It's just not how politics at a high level or even at a low level
But politics
works.
at a high level isn't telling that people are going to be £350 million a week for the NHS and then immediately afterwards say that, well, actually, no, that's not the case. We did have it on our battle bus, but it's not actually true.
That's out-of-date pedantry.
All right, but
one of the most
Andrew,
remarkable qualities Boris has is resilience, which you certainly need at a high level. 10 years ago, when he was completely down on his luck, he'd had terrible embarrassments. He'd been smashed by a combination of the news of the world and his own party leader. He seemed to be out of it. He ended an interview by singing a song by Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. You're never going to keep me down.
Is that a quality for leadership?
Well, I think it is.
Necessarily?
You have to be. You can never be out of reach of a knockdown blow.
But isn't the fact that he was brought down by his own behaviour? I mean, that...
Well, but then he got back up on his feet. It is like being knocked down in a boxing match, isn't it? It is a...
Well, it's not quite, is it? Because you go into a boxing match for a fair fight. If you do something reprehensible and you are then attacked for it and you rise again, you've still done something reprehensible.
Who has never done something reprehensible? Are we to have plaster saints governing this country? It's an utterly unrealistic idea that we would be governed by fifth-rate mediocrities if we insisted on people who had a completely immaculate life in every respect. Was Churchill invariably sober? Invariably right about Gallipoli? I don't mean that Boris is anything like as great a figure as Churchill, but all great men or all considerable figures have grievous faults.
Sonia, they have flaws. That's the fact.
Of course they have flaws. It depends on what your flaws are. I think sort of holding your cards close to your chest in an international negotiation is obviously sensible and right. Lying to the people on something as critical as saying that we'll have £350 million a week to spend on the NHS and then reverse that 5 minutes after you've won is a dissemblance of a totally different order.
The people want to be lied to. They want to be told.
I don't want to be lied to.
Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you are undoubtedly a very high-minded person, but most people actually want to be told that there's some answer to immigration. Do
you think, Andrew, that they worry about politicians' private life at this stage in the game?
I think if a politician has gone out and said monogamy is the ideal and we must all attain to it and adulterers must be stoned, then your private life becomes of great and telling importance. But if you are a merry England conservative who believes that people should have a private life and should be free to enjoy themselves, then I think most people think good luck to you.
I think being free to
Quick
enjoy
thought.
yourselves is one thing, but the Court of Appeal was so shocked by his behaviour when tried to gag the idea that he had, or the actual fact he had a love child, that they said that they questioned his fitness for office. So I think they don't see it as a Merry England type of jolly jape. It's actually quite a serious way to treat other people.
Very quick thought, Andrew.
Well, I think he's actually, this is an unobserved characteristic or an unremarked characteristic. He's actually charitable to obscure. I don't mean he's been charitable to me, but I've seen him be charitable to very obscure people.